Welcome. In this video, I will be walking through a detailed correction of public claims made by Dana, using a fully transparent, evidence-based process. Every point I will make will be directly tied to verifiable timestamps from her original video. You'll see exactly what was said, when it was said, and how it either misrepresents ethics, collapses logical distinctions, or spreads cognitive biases without empirical foundation. This isn't an attack, it's an educational breakdown of why evidence, logic, and epistemic responsibility must come before personal belief. Feelings are not facts, empiricism isn't a vibe, and ethics must be proven, not asserted. Dana uses Elon Musk and others as examples, but then generalizes without distinction. She collapses evidence based on facts into emotional delusion. That's ableism. And by leaving herself room to deny she meant anyone else, she relies on probable deniability rather than accountability, such as the way with generalizations. Now, what is empiricism? Empiricism means observable, testable, and falsifiable. Observable can be seen or perceived through our senses. Testable can be verified or disproven through experimentation or observation. Falsifiable can be proven wrong or refuted through evidence or experimentation. It isn't a belief system, it's a foundational to science, justice, medicine, and even animal welfare. You can't feel your way out of climate change. You can't believe your way around suffering. When someone says your ethics are just your truth, that's a category error. Truth isn't emotional, it's measurable. And yes, you can be emotional and still be talking the truth. This is a war on emotions and what it means to be a human being. Dana collapses consequentialism into personal belief, saying it's a deeply personal thing. This reduces ethical reasoning to internal feelings instead of measurable outcomes.
And what moral standing is the right one and things like that. It's a deeply personal thing, and I think it's really damaging and dangerous to sort of be trying. I don't know if I want to say trying to push the message, but
so no one's allowed to ever be held accountable. Things like rape and murder are perfectly fine because morality is personal, therefore keep it to yourself even when the world's on fire. Consequentialism equals harm measurement, not identity. Consequentialism evaluates actions by outcomes. It's a systematic evaluation, not an identity. Dana's misrepresentation.
one that annoys me. It's one that there's I feel like there's very much the perception still within the autistic community, at least from what I see personally, that sense of justice is that autistic people know the right thing. We see
this is where it becomes an identity. Autism has nothing to do with telling the truth, being real, or being honest. Just because someone feels like they're speaking the truth doesn't mean they are. But then saying that everyone else is wrong because it's their belief when that's your belief and it's not based in logical reasoning or, anything that's actually as it's presented.
We see through all the bullshit to see what the right moral opinion is to have, and we hold it really close to.
And see, everyone only can think morality. Morality to her cannot be proven. It can't be, actually backed by science. It's just opinion. And when you're citing your opinion and science and foundational things and foundational fields like empiricism, which is empirical, i.e., like gravity, it exists whether you believe it or not, right? You can deny a tool exists, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Dana collapses this distinction by claiming morality is a deeply personal thing, implying ethics very simply because other people will disagree. Just because someone disagrees doesn't mean that they're the person they're disagreeing with is wrong. Is for instance, if I say gravity existed before it was discovered and someone says no, that's not true, that's them denying reality. Beliefs can't alter objective outcomes. Believing murder or climate change denial doesn't change real world consequences, death, suffering, or environmental collapse. Section 3. The political irony. Everything feels political now. And then she uploads a video right after saying, since everything is political now, anyways, you're the one that decided to make political content. Just because you're citing your beliefs doesn't mean it's not political. If you're gonna make something political, then at least stand by when someone pushes back on your beliefs. Existing isn't universally political. Choosing an existence of something like non-veganism is, though, in a sense. Nobody really knows what's right. It's dangerous to believe you're right.
To our hearts. And the reality is, every single person on the planet thinks they're seeing through the bullshit and they're holding like the truth to their hearts. Like every.
So no one can actually be right. Truth is just subjective and relative, right? It's not actually true. Like, just disagreeing with something just means it's not true. So therefore, she says morality and ethics is an opinion that can't be measured in science or weighed in any way. And it's a fact, not just my belief, that she's wrong. So even if it was my belief, well, her belief is my belief is wrong. Well, my belief is her belief is wrong. It's a logical collapse instantly. It makes no sense. You shouldn't live by pure beliefs. You should live by things that are proven. Otherwise, you're not living fully in reality. You're just living in your beliefs. And that is precisely what has killed millions, if not billions, of people. Beliefs, not facts.
Everybody thinks that. And I do think that as autistic people, we often feel a lot more strongly about like politics and that kind of thing. And we perhaps do feel a bit more strongly about voicing our opinions of what we think is right and things like that. Like, I do very much believe that like we're holding it to heart a lot more than many people do.
And that's ableism, because you're making a wide generalization about something as complex as neurodivergence with many different cognitive styles. Most people don't even know what a cognitive style is. So nobody knows it's right. It's dangerous to believe you're right. So you can't be right and then say you're right and then back it up with facts just because you decide to not look at the sum total of the facts and you misrepresent Occam's razor and say, well, the simplest answer is the most logical one. There's nothing simple about evolution, biology, or the Big Bang. Does that mean we should simplify it into God created everything? And then, well, what created God? Oh, just nothing. Simplifying only serves to spread bias and opinion. It doesn't serve reality at all. It's an agent of ignorance. So it's an appeal to futility. Oh, well, that's just your belief, so why do anything? Moral relativism and performative humility. These are political claims framed as caution, but they erase empirical ethics. Dana's claims. Everything feels political now. That's dangerous. An implicit theme throughout the segment. Nobody really knows what's right. It's dangerous to think your opinion is definitely correct. So if something is definitely correct and you stand by it, that's dangerous. speaking facts is dangerous, but if you're on a completely opposite side of the world where you're safe, you're not, Elon Musk has no control over your life, right? You're not the one suffering, you're not the one seeing, people being deported, you're perfectly safe and speaking your opinion. But other people that are actually speaking facts about what's actually going on, they're dangerous. What's dangerous is allowing tyranny to continue and not saying anything. That is dangerous. Saying and doing nothing in the face of systemic inequality and injustice and oppression.
But I also think that Elon Musk would probably say that it's his strong autistic sense of justice that means he wants the best for America. And I think that it's safe to say that the vast majority of us would disagree with that.
And that's moral relativism. Just because, say, everyone disagrees that all of a sudden that gravity doesn't exist, it doesn't mean that gravity stops existing. Just because you believe something doesn't make it true. You started the basis off of, well, that's your belief and that's dangerous. But that's your belief. This is your belief. Do you not see the contradiction and logical collapse?
Like, deciding what justice is and what, like, moral standing is the right one and things like that, it's a deeply, deeply personal thing.
No, it's not. And it's not called moral standing. It's called an ethical framework. If you're gonna just blankets generalization and say that ethics don't matter, morality doesn't matter, we shouldn't talk about it, we shouldn't do anything, that is fucking dangerous. That's how you end up with fascists running things, spreading ableism. Generalizing neurodivergence only serves to hurt the neurodivergent, which is really ironic. So that's moral relativism, right? Well, everyone believes you're wrong, nothing can be right, everything is subjective and relative, right? So genocide is relative. Genocide is okay. If everyone believes it's okay, if everyone believes genocide is okay by her definition of logic and reasoning, then it's okay. Just because a sum total agree with something, it's automatically okay because it's agreed upon. That's not empirical. That's not testable. That's not falsifiable. That's just opinion. Nobody knows what's right. So rapists, serial killers, religious abuse, none of that is bad. Because nobody knows what's right. If nobody knows what's right, then how can anything be wrong? It's dangerous to think your opinion is definitely correct. So if 2 + 2 = 4, and I stand by that with my fucking life when everyone else is saying it's 3, that's dangerous. That makes no sense.
And I think it's really damaging and dangerous to sort of be trying, I don't know if I want to say trying to push the message, but like what I absorbed when I was first like venturing into the autism community was very much that like autistic people are nearly always in the right and we always have like the right thing in mind.
Overgeneralization.
The right thing at heart. And that's just obviously not the fucking case. And I think that far too many of us, like from people.
So that is true, and that's the only thing I will agree with her on in this.
Knowing in real life and being friends with and stuff as well, far too many people lay on the fact like, oh, I have a really strong sense of justice. And it's like, okay, but you're not doing anything.
So all the empirical proof I've provided of me doing things despite us being on food stamps, my mom having 2 crushed legs, me being too sick to work, and I'm still vegan. We're both still vegan. That's not doing anything. Switching your diet to save the planet is definitely doing something. Just because you refuse to look at facts and how people actually practice ethics in their actions doesn't mean they're not ethical just because you believe it's not and you didn't do the due diligence of looking into what you're talking about.
Like, you're not doing anything with it, so I don't really think you do.
And here she's being specific, which I can only assume she's referring to me, like a lot of people do, right? They like to directly reference me and then just not name me, which is a form of dehumanization that's systemic against neurodivergence in general. So it's a form of ableism.
Like, the fact that you have strong opinions doesn't change anything, you know?
So her strong opinions that she's asserting doesn't mean anything, but she's asserting her opinions mean everything.
I don't want to push that, like, autistic people have to be activists or whatever.
Is that another direct reference? Because I've heard of no one else that's a neurodivergent activist. Like, it makes no sense. Like, neurodivergence and activism have nothing to do with each other, like binarily. Like, that's a false equivalence. That's a gross misrepresentation.
But I just, when it starts coming to like judge, jury, and execution, sort of.
So, if you're upholding that slavery is bad simply because it's a tradition and someone cites tradition as a ethical framework, which it's not, simply because something is done for a certain period of time by a certain amount of people does not mean it's moral or ethical. It just means that it's agreed upon. Generally, agreeing upon something that causes systemic harm is unethical. And yes, speaking out against truth, speaking out against lies, like, being against slavery when slavery was normalized, that's dangerous. Yeah. And it is dangerous for fascists to spread disinformation that their beliefs are the correct ones, but she's overgeneralizing. She's saying you, and she's generalizing everyone that's autistic. And then by saying you, she's being specifically, she's internally referencing a specific person.
Of standing is when I think it starts getting very, very dangerous. And it's the kind of thing that I wish a lot more people understood that your idea of justice and your idea of what's like moralistically correct, other people will disagree. It might not be the right thing. And that's how
might not be the right thing. So you shouldn't investigate it. You shouldn't weigh anything. You should just say, oh, they're wrong. They're just wrong. I can't prove it, but they're just wrong. That's your opinion. Even when it's factually backed using tools like empiricism, which is grounded in reality, not your beliefs that everyone else that practices ethics is wrong. You can't be a moral person if you don't practice ethics or study ethics, because morality comes from ethics. It comes from an ethical framework. Every morality is different under every framework. Hedonism tells morality that do what's only good for you, that sense pleasures is the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter the actual outcome of that. It doesn't matter if, like, so say hedonism, it promotes, self pleasure and that's it. Well, then you're advocating for serial killers because they enjoy serial killing. Like, that's an illogical framework not grounded in empirical reality, i.e., outcomes. Utilitarianism is, however, utilitarianism has ethical and moral blind spots, such as not accounting for the disabled, the minorities, such like that, called outliers. Social inequality and hyper-sanity accounts for outliers. Instead of just glossing over all the outliers, it accounts for them, right? It excludes them from situations, from including them with other people, because otherwise you're just generalizing. And generalizing like that is dangerous.
how we get people that are like real behind fascism and things like that.
So saying something is factually true, like animal agriculture is speeding up extinction accelerationism, as claimed by Project 2025 from their literal talking heads. They are for animal agriculture, they're for reducing green initiatives, they're for speeding up the extinction of the planet, of killing everyone essentially. So we shouldn't talk about that. We shouldn't assert that it's fact, even though they've stated as such, even though the science, world leading health experts have stated as such. That's fascism, apparently. No, what fascists do is they misappropriate something, and it's not grounded in reality. And by denying ethics as a whole, you're saying that reality doesn't exist.
You know, like, I think it's very, very dangerous to think that your opinion is definitely the correct one and not register outside forces that might.
I'm registering outside forces. The problem is that no one can actually use ethics. No one can actually do a dive. No one's actually interested in proving it. They're just saying I'm wrong, and that's dangerous. That's called gaslighting. That's the literal definition of gaslighting. You're wrong. Show your proof. You're wrong. No, I'm not. Prove it. You're not proving it. You're just saying you're wrong and that it's my belief, even though empiricism, consequentialism, cause and effect are the building blocks of reality. Without cause and effect, without time, there is no cause and effect. And without cause and effect, there is no Big Bang. We don't exist. Like,
might influence a change in it because you've already decided you're right.
You have already decided you're right without any proof, without any due diligence, without any research, without being able to identify one framework from another, without being able to identify moral relativism, moral absolutism, and moral realism. If you can't make the distinction between those and you're constantly blurring the lines between those, that's dangerous. And you're definitely thinking your opinion is correct. You're asserting your opinion is correct, that everyone else's that can prove reality and this and that, right, within our measurable means, is wrong, is belief. That is what a fascist does. No, I'm not calling you a fascist, I'm just saying it's what fascists do.
And finally, I massively misunderstood what people mean by the autistic like need for routine.
Okay, these are inherently political and universal statements disguised as empathetic neutrality, built on logical fallacies. You can't be neutral on a moving, burning train. Appeal to futility. Nobody knows it's right, so we should never do anything or hold anyone accountable. Moral relativism. Ethics are personal. It doesn't matter who it hurts, as long as the person believes they're doing good, they're doing good. Performative humility, pretending uncertainty to avoid accountability. Teaching ethics as purely personal undermines reality-based justice and accountability. If a child doesn't understand quantum physics, does that invalidate the theory? If you stick by the theory, then does that make you delusional, even though you're certain and other people just arbitrarily decide you're wrong? If someone doesn't grasp Gödel's incompleteness theorem, does logic collapse? No, the truth remains, regardless of whether it is understood. And you can't understand it if you don't actually do the work and you're just doing a quick, 17-minute recording just stating a bunch of falsities. Breakdown. The dangerous loop. You think you're right, that makes you dangerous. I think you're wrong, so I must be right? That's not logically or ethically consistent. Thinking you're right isn't the problem, refusing to prove it is. You think you're right, that's dangerous. I think you're wrong, therefore implicitly I must be right. By saying that I'm wrong, you're stating empirically that you are right without proving it. The reasoning is circular. It's rhetorical manipulation rather than education. My framework is consequential, recursively weighted, and privilege adjusted. This corrects utilitarian blind spots and includes the marginalized. Empirical veganism is not belief-based. It's proven harm reduction by world-leading health experts. Clearly educational, ethics based on measurable consequences, adjusted for privilege, accessibility, and empirical outcomes. Veganism cited as empirically ethical due to measurable harm reduction. The ableism reduces autistic ethics to rigidity, generalizes moral conviction as bias, dismisses unnamed critics without refuting them. Confidence in empirically backed ethics is not rigidity, it's an epistemic responsibility. Reduces ethics to autistic rigidity. Autistic people are nearly always in the right. That's obviously not the case. Dangerous, so you're saying that by a whole, that just because someone can't be nearly always in the right, is that what you're saying? You're saying that because you're neurodivergent, you can never nearly always be in the right. If you're basing your life on facts, the facts change, so you change. It's called being consistent. If you're trying to align yourself with what's empirically correct, obviously that is the case. Dangerous to think your opinion is definitely correct. You've already decided you're right, still referencing autism, when she's the one deciding she's right without even proving it. Then she dehumanizes unnamed critics, possibly me. You're not doing anything, so I don't really think you have a sense of justice. If you don't know anything about ethics and frameworks, how can you say someone's not doing something? Obvious generalizations branched from autists. Inaction is action. If you don't eat meat and dairy, you're doing your part. Everyone's capabilities to what they can or can't do is limited by things like nuance, such as socioeconomics and region. Do you expect people to document every ethical thing they do? Autists have to be ethics. Now, I can only assume she's referencing me, as I've proven already. Many people reference me, but try their best to not do so by name, because then they'd have to show their work, which they can't do because they know that I just proved them wrong. Then they would resort to more harassment fueled by bias, aka belief. Oh, it's a grift. He's not selling anything, but it's a grift. Dana's indirect framing implies autistic confidence in empirical ethics as rigidity or delusion, thus discriminatory and ableist. Not naming critics explicitly disempowers and dehumanizes them, preventing fair discourse. What Dana actually says based on transcript. Autistic people often feel a stronger sense of justice, hold it closer to their hearts. True for many autistic people emotionally, which is a generalization. It's not a problem, but it can be unchecked. It's dangerous to think your opinion is definitely the correct one. Framing issue. She collapses empirical certainty into dangerous rigidity. So where does it become ableist? Not the first part, not when she says autistic people feel just as strongly. It becomes ableist at the second part because she collapses. Ethical confidence, which could be empirical and justified, into autistic rigidity, emotional delusion without proof, without checking whether the confidence was evidence-based or emotion-based. If someone's confident in something they can prove, that's not emotional delusion. Why this is logically discriminatory. Acknowledge autistic people feel just as strongly, fine. Warns thinking you're right is dangerous, but without asking right based on what? Feelings or facts. Implies that autistic certainty equals dangerous overconfidence. This equates rational evidence-based certainty with emotional rigidity without evidence. Example, imagine two people. Autist says veganism is ethical because it reduces harm with studies to prove it. Backs it up with 50 plus empirical studies, nutrition, climate, ethics. Person B, random person says eating meat is fine because they feel it's natural. No empirical backing, just belief. Dana's framing treats both certainties, person A and person B, as equally dangerous because they both think they're right. but that's epistemically wrong. Not all certainty is the same. Evidence-based certainty is good, blind belief certainty is bad. By not distinguishing, she pathologizes autistic people's reasoned conclusions as if they're just emotional stubbornness. That is the ableist move. Subtle, but very real. In short, feeling justice strongly? No problem. Saying autistic people are always right? Yes, it's good to challenge that if unexamined. Equating all autistic certainty with dangerous overconfidence without analyzing if it's based on evidence? That's discrimination, because it assumes autistic people's rational evidence-based ethics are probably just emotional bias without investigating the merit of their arguments, which is biased and therefore hypocritical. Final clarified verdict. Dana was correct to say not all autistic people are automatically right, but she wrongly collapsed rational evidence-based ethical confidence into dangerous autistic overconfidence without distinguishing logic from emotion. That is ableism, because it unjustly stereotypes autistic cognitive styles as inherently flawed when presenting a certainty, even when that certainty is empirically justified. When opinion collapses, Dana treats consequentialism as an opinion while ignoring measurable global harm. Climate data, animal agriculture impact, consequences are not beliefs. Consequentialism or empirical ethics are merely personal opinions because she generalizes all ethics. That includes consequentialism and veganism. Logical correction: when facts, climate data, animal welfare, and extinction rates are presented and dismissed without counter evidence, that's not debate, scientific, or honest, it's indoctrination. Opinion-based ethics collapses instantly under empirical scrutiny. Hyper-Sanity is robust precisely because it relies on measurable truth, not subjective feelings. This isn't a personal attack, it's a defense of ethics against denialism. If morality is just personal, nothing can ever be wrong, and that's not justice. Morality is deeply personal. Teaching morality as purely personal tactfully approves ignoring objectively measurable injustices, genocide, animal cruelty, and climate injustice, as long as it feels personal. This isn't justice, it's ethical denialism. Knowledge or noise? Ethics must be provable, feelings are not frameworks, truth is recursive and accountable. What Hyper-Sanity offers: a logic-based method to protect the vulnerable, built on facts, not noise. You don't need to agree, but if you challenge empiricism, you must provide logic, reasoning, and measurable outcomes. Without evidence, prioritizing your feelings over facts isn't ethics, it's noise. Hyper-Sanity is built on facts, evidence, and truth. Noise won't rebuild a broken world. Truth will in an age of disinformation and beliefs.